On this week's episode of TalkStone, we talk HCT Atlanta with DrJikininki.
And as always, we present this week's well-played moment, and we go back in time to explore the origins of my favorite segment, Meme History.
Everybody get in here. Let's break down all the esports action. Welcome to TalkStone, your home for all things competitive Hearthstone news and analysis. My name is Frodan.
This just in. TalkStone's live. You don't get the joke? I feel like we're
We're
reporters, right? We're zoomed in.
I don't have my copy, so I can read in my notes in front of it. Yeah, that's right. TJ and I decided to record TalkStone today in the same room, within the same vicinity. We no longer have to yell and sign across walls within the Blizzard offices. Hope you guys had a really good holiday season coming up here. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving if you do celebrate it. I'm very thankful that I can do this podcast with TJ. It's been really fun so far. I think TalkStone has slowly gravitated towards us discussing things about Hearthstone competitive news and analysis to just basically two guys telling stories behind the scenes and just messing around.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. We had the special Halloween episode, but we didn't have the special Thanksgiving episode. I was looking forward to dressing up as a turkey.
Oh, you wanted us to dress up? I thought Thanksgiving episodes tend to be more wholesome and reflective and start saying things that we're grateful for. But,
and not about a bunch of chuckleheads dressing up as turkeys. So I understand. I understand the spirit of the holiday, so I get it.
In honor of Thanksgiving and chuckleheads, we have one of the biggest chuckleheads out there. Joining us as a guest to start off TalkStone is DrJikininki, who was at HCT Atlanta, breaking down some of the esports action happening over there. Dr. J, are you on the line? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did I miss the memo about the turkey costume? Because I would have been down for that, too. I would have definitely bought a turkey costume for this
event.
Your natural complexion will do just fine.
Yeah, very turkey-like.
Yes, it's his overarching Adam's apple or something like that. Dr. J, talk to us about how's life been. It's been a while since we've checked in with, I guess we haven't really had Dr. J on for any HCT broadcasts, have we?
No.
Just competing.
Yeah, he's been competing, also tour stops, but how you been doing, Dr. J?
Yeah, I've been doing pretty well. I've been starting to slowly move into, the caster life. A lot of players like to say I'm washed up now since I haven't competed in too much. But it's a lot of fun to do. I really enjoy casting. So I've been liking moving to that style and not necessarily competing as much. I still love to compete, don't get me wrong, but something about talking about cards instead of playing them just, gets me going.
Yeah, you feel smarter. Sure, you can make the reads, you can make the big plays, TJs, the intelligent lines to find the 1% outer, but you can also just sound smart all the time when you cast because you can see both hands.
Yeah, it makes it easier. Yeah. Or you can be able to see both hands and still not sound smart.
That's the best.
What we do.
That's an option, yeah.
We do that to make our partners look extra good.
That's right.
It's all intentional.
Yeah.
Dr. J, talk to us about, casting DreamHack Atlanta and everything that was going along with it, working alongside, I believe, Cora and Admirable.
And Lorinda.
Lorinda, that's right. He's a DreamHack mainstay. What's the experience like casting a DreamHack with, hundreds of players at all these Grand Prix events compared to some of the online to offline events that some tour stops had this year?
Yeah, so DreamHack Atlanta was one of the last opportunities that a lot of these players could get points for playoffs in the upcoming winter playoffs. So there was a huge amount of players here. It was over 200 from all over. So it's kind of surreal to see how many people came out to this DreamHack. And then I've worked with Lorinda, Admirable, and Cora before at DreamHack Austin when I kind of got called up pretty quickly to cast. And the group is just fantastic. Working with all of those people, I just feel so comfortable there, and it feels amazing just to cast with them because I feel like I have the most experience with them. So it's a really great experience. The one thing that was a little bit surreal is that the previous year I had won DreamHack Atlanta, and I didn't have a chance to defend the title. And so I feel a little bittersweet about that, but I'm really glad Siyun won it because I think he's very deserving of the title.
Sure. We'll talk about the results in just a second, but we want to inject a little bit of behind-the-scenes, personality shenanigans going on. What's the funniest moment that happened off-camera between you and the casters? Because that tends to, in my opinion, I think Hearthstone casters are the funniest and most entertaining when we're not live on camera.
Especially That's Admirable.
I
know you got some good That's Admirable stories.
He's definitely a hoot on camera, but when the camera and lights are off, he is another kind of beast.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I know there was one moment where Admiral and I just kept like arguing with each other about a play, and
Really?
Admiral is one of those. I know, right? Admiral is one of those players that will not stand, like, he will not stop his argument. It could be that the sky is green, and he'll eventually convince you that the sky is legitimately green. So we were arguing with some Even Warlock player.
What does that give you? Huh? You tell me.
But other than that, I can't think of Other than that, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It was like extremely. A lot of us were like tired. I think Admirable towards the end was starting to feel a little bit under the weather. I think he was starting to get a little bit sick. So definitely one of those kind of tournaments.
That's also actually very typical Admirable. He tends to overextend himself of like how much he's putting into his broadcast. So he does tend to lose his voice at a lot of events.
Yeah, he gives 80% of his energy bank on day one, and then just slowly down up from there. But they were long days, and I think a lot of that had to do with the tournament meta going in. And talking a little bit about the tournament meta, we saw, I guess it was expected, a little bit of a rise in the cloning gallery priest.
Yeah, I want, before we go into the decks and stuff, I want to make a comment on the post-Boomsday patch meta. I think it's severely underrated. I think most people feel like not much has changed because Giggling Inventor got nerfed, and that was pretty much it. Mana Worm, of course, got a little bit of a hit, but and no one's really playing like Avi on any decks because it's only in Wild. So I think when people look at the metagame, they think that the Boomsday was only to keep Giggling Inventor in check. But I would say that the diversity and representation at tournaments are still really interesting to watch. For example, you saw that Xerx's Cloning Gallery Priest, which started off kind of as a joke and a meme. And now it's, the reason why Seohyun was able to get to the finals and be able to deliver a big win. And him and Orange were the only two players in the top 16 that brought Priest. And then even within the top 16, you saw a pretty interesting breadth of different decks. Yes, Death Rattle Hunter was still there, but I was really impressed with Phenom's lineup, which brought double Mech Cthulhu and Jungle Giant Quest Druid with Ixlid and a bunch of other weird stuff like Steel Rager so you can keep Steel alive. That is awesome to me, and I wish that we had maybe one or two more tournaments in the Boomsday Data where we were able to explore things like that, which I think is really sweet.
And Dr. J, I watched your cast where you had to cast, I think it was Phenom versus Sidonia.
Sidonia, oh my goodness. I had never seen a more one-sided attempt at a reverse sweep in my life. It was that was brutal.
Yeah. I felt bad for you because literally every turn the only thing you guys could say was, well, he's going to life tap and draw cards.
Draw a card.
And Sidonia can't do anything. And there's Mechathune, and he's dead.
Yeah, but I think it's just cool that strategies like that can exist. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it does keep the metagame a little bit more variable and a little bit more honest too.
Sure,
like making sure that things don't just get too greedy, because it felt like a lot of people were getting away with playing Odd Warrior or Death Rattle Hunter, and just the Malago / Togwalgo Druid. There are ways you can fight against it. So as much as we're getting ready for the Roscons Rumble, I felt like DreamHack Atlanta's deck representation was a very pleasant surprise for me, because I was expecting it to be a little bit more settled than it actually was.
Yeah, I think I'd agree there. The Cloning Gallery Priest, Dr. J, you got to cast that a few times throughout the weekend. Is that a tough deck to cast? What are your overall thoughts on that deck making its way into the meta?
So the deck was a bit strange to me. Actually, the funniest part about it is before DreamHack Atlanta, I was playing a couple ladder games with it, trying to learn the ins and outs, because I thought it might be a deck that would be a sleeper pick and brought. I still don't think the deck is necessarily as powerful as DreamHack Atlanta tended to show it. For instance, talking to players, Orange was like, the deck's insane. It's the reason I'm here at top 16. And then Pheno, he brought I think the same lineup as Orange, and he was like, it was my worst performing deck. I couldn't get a win with it. So it was crazy to see the differences in the players and how they felt about the deck. I think what made the deck so strong is there were a lot of very minuscule plays you can make with it that would turn the game slightly different. Even after Seyun won his top 8 game, he immediately comes up to me and I congratulate him, good job on top 4, keep it up. He comes to me and goes, oh, there was this game where I could have done this play, and if I did this play, I had lethal next turn, but I didn't do it. And it was just crazy to think of how in-depth the deck actually goes for setups for future plays.
I feel like the deck is very nuanced, and players are still undecided. And I'm excited to see if that even continues to evolve into Roscon's Rumble, because I would hate for this deck to not realize its full potential, because I feel like we're just getting into the meat. You know, like right now we're first having a little
meat.
appetizer. Yeah, we're like experimenting with it. People are still unsure, but once they settle that this deck can be legitimate, I want to see how much punch it really has when you have it go toe to toe with some of these other big slow combo defensive decks like Shutterwalk Shaman.
Yeah, you know, the last set of before rotation is always the craziest because you need high impact cards to make a difference, and so decks get bonkers by then. But let's take a moment to talk about just the top 16 as a whole.
Sure.
From DreamHack Atlanta, we saw Sohyun take it. He's been grinding that DreamHack scene and the tour stop scene for a long time, so I think a lot of players are happy for him. Sinto taking the runner-up spot at DreamHack Atlanta, which is
right. Following up his top 8 fall championship performance, where he lost to what was it, Just Saying for the top 4, and he was kind of talking about he couldn't really overcome the script. Comes back to his the next tour stop and gets second place to guarantee a spot in playoffs. And you know, it just goes to show you that Sinto still has it. As much as we joke and meme that he's spending too much time in World of Warcraft and the Plains of Azeroth to be focused on Hearthstone, I think just shows that once you get over that initial learning curve and of how to be a top player in Hearthstone, it's not too much difficult to get back to it once you kind of get into the stride of things.
Yeah.
It's just that getting over that initial hump, overcoming your own biases, being able to see past your own weaknesses and what things you were messing up, I think is really important. And I think Sinto has that down very much. So I'm impressed to see him be able to make second place, but at the same time, not that surprised.
Yeah. There's some players that get over that hump and then throw it all away to become a caster.
Or are undecided if they want to be a player or a caster. So sometimes they try to do both and succeed.
Who would that be?
Mediocre at both.
I don't know. I don't know who I'd be referring to with that statement.
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Maybe he has a fake PhD or something.
Yeah.
Did Cora play before she started casting? Like okay,
all right. I like deflecting. It's also a very good caster skill. You have what it takes, man, to be the best.
We were actually referring to that's admirable.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, to be fair, though, out of all the HCT casters, Admirable has the most competitive experience. I mean, heck, he made it to America's Championships at the top 16 in 2014, and he almost made it back in 2016.
Yeah, he
got what it takes for sure.
9th through 12th or whatever in the lower bracket situation.
I think he got like a really bad secret paladin draw, and he was like really favored to win. So. Unlucky. Either way, well, let's talk a little bit more about the top 8. I want to give a shout out to Tars for yet another solid DreamHack performance. Whenever you see Lorinda post stats about his track record of all of the DreamHack stuff, you have some of the greats like Muzzy and Fino and Sand, and then Tars is like up there in the top players, and you think, I haven't really seen too much of Tars in the HCT playoffs and championships. But then when you look at his DreamHack record, this guy has phenomenal results. And once again, another top 8, losing to Sinto, nothing to shake your head at whatsoever. And then you gotta be proud of the guy.
Definitely a good run. But any players in the top 16 that kind of stood out to you, Dr. J?
I think from the top 16, it was a good mixture of notable and kind of newcomers. Because we see names like Meat Plants that you were referring to, where it's just, you know, you may have not necessarily heard their name. Maybe they made like a top 16 in the past, but this is like their second time trying to solidify their spot into the scene. And then, of course, we had Titans like Orange, Sentinel. You can even consider Siyun kind of in that lineup where he's a Titan. I mean, it was like 6 top 16s before this making it 7th and then eventually winning the tournament. And then I was really excited for Swaggy G. I think Swaggy G is one of the best underrated players that not many people know about. I have the pleasure of like getting into Discord calls and talking to him a lot and just helping him with lineups and building lineups with him. And he's just a really intelligent guy. The Swaggy G, the G in Swaggy G stands for Swaggy Genius. So I expect more from him in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, Swaggy G has been on the verge of breakouts, and the one thing that's cool is that he tends to take a different idea with his lineups a lot. So this time, his unique, and I put that in air quotes, idea is that he played Quest Rogue. And Quest Rogue, once again, somehow making a deep run, despite the fact that it's just been taken down a peg or two. And it's kind of like, at this point, watching Michael Jordan on the Wizards in like 2003. You're just like, man, this is really sad, but still somehow it's putting up 20 points a game. And I don't know how it's doing it. I don't know how Quest Rogue gets over the finish line half the time it does. But it still manages to do, despite being 4-4s, despite losing Giggling Inventor, despite having, you know, all these tools taken away from it, it it's still really solid, especially if the meta gets too slow and greedy.
Well, this is what happens when you associate yourself with Tarian killing all day for the majority of your time. You end up playing Quest Rogue. They can convince anybody to play Quest Rogue if you spend enough time with them.
Overall, we're really just happy with how the year's wrapped up. The level of consistency these players showed is absolutely outrageous, TJ. Just shattered all my expectations.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. But Dr. J, as we wrap up our talk about DreamHack Atlanta here, any final thoughts you want to give? What was your absolute favorite moment? On camera, off camera, during your traveling, during the matches? What was your absolute favorite moment from Atlanta this weekend?
Absolute favorite moment was seeing a lot of friends who had not necessarily gotten to the point where they wanted to necessarily with the results wise. For instance, Swaggy and Siyun, I talked to them quite a bit. I'm always in calls with them, talking to them, and it was really, really sweet to see how well they did in the tournament, and also just all of the endemic guys. I believe at one point their combined record was like 20-4 going into round number 6 or something. It was absolutely insane to see, how strong they were doing in the tournament. So it was really cool to see that.
I always get really happy when I see my friends do well too. Like when Dan gets up on that desk and just casts his heart out.
Oh, I think
it just warms my heart.
When I compete at events, because whenever I compete at events these days, I feel like if I go on stream, I just get bodied. Like I can do well off stream, but everything leading up into it, like I was on a 5-series winning streak, and Fuzzy comes up and just 3-0s me mercilessly with Miracle Rogue, like getting Faldori Strider on 4 every single time, and then drawing the spiders.
That's how I feel when I cast with somebody else who has like all the casting experience. I'm just like, they just know so much, and I just know about the cards.
I feel your pain. You can become one of us. You can become one of us, Dr. J. Thanks so much for joining us for this segment. Any last words? Where are we going to see you next?
Next, I will be casting WESG, the Canada qualifier portion of it, to go to China. And then after that, I have absolutely no clue. I'll probably make it to HCT Philly as well. Not sure if I'll be playing or casting. I'm sure that's up in the air. But that's where you'll see me next. And thanks for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Is there anything you're doing for Thanksgiving, or is there anything you're grateful for? You can make a Hearthstone theme.
I'm grateful for all the opportunities Hearthstone's given me. It's kind of changed my life for the better. Places I've been, the things I've seen have just been incredible. So I really am thankful for what, Blizzard and Hearthstone has done for me. It's absolutely insane. I'm going to eat a lot of food. I'm going to go buy the turkey outfit and probably wear that on Thanksgiving. My family will judge me forever. But, TJ told me to do it, and TJ's kind of like my dad. So I gotta do it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Dr. J, and happy Thanksgiving.
Goodbye, son.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And Dan, since we have absolutely no way to transition into the next segment, I guess we'll just go back to our seats.
Well, this is my seat, TJ.
Oh.
And voila, through the power of technology,
science,
and video editing software, we have successfully transplanted TJ back into his rightful room next to the fireplace. And we will continue the show with the well-played moment.
Yeah, and this well-played moment was, I was watching this live, and right after I watched it, Admirable messaged me, and he doesn't usually message me for things like this. He messaged me and he said, "Did you just watch that?" in all caps. And I said, "Yes, Admirable, I did it." And,
Admirable types in all caps all the time, by the way, just like he casts in real life.
Yeah, but it's not often, especially after casting Hearthstone for as long as we have. It's tough to inspire us with good play, right? I think the well-played moment is a good way for us to kind of like nerd out about cool Hearthstone plays. But this one was just, it capped off the series so well. And I'll set it up. Gallon versus Fino. This was Game 5 in Swiss Round 2, so it was very early on in the tournament. And both these players, Fino, of course, everybody probably knows. I mean, he's had a fantastic year. Gallon has also had a good year, but has flown under the radar quite a few times. He made it top 16 at Atlanta. He also has a couple top 4s at tour stops this year. So
he doesn't travel nearly as much, but he's a very strong player.
Yeah, and this was in Game 5 after what was an incredible series leading up to this, with a lot of back and forth, both players playing some decks that are pretty complicated. It was kind of Control Buster versus Control Buster lineups. We even saw like Death Rattle Hunter versus Cloning Gallery Priest, which was a good game. And I recommend everybody watch this series if they get a chance in its fullest. But at the very least, watch this last game, which was Malygos Druid versus Malygos Azalina something Druid.
Yes.
And it was Gallon's Druid has double injured Blade Master and a King Mukla in the deck. Mm-hmm. And he started off with a ton of pressure. He got the King Mukla off. He got the double injured Blade Master off. So he was piling on the pressure. And basically it was just kind of like this back and forth where both players were using all their resources to try and fend off the board pressure. It got to a point where Fino had no cards in hand but a big board lead with an Alex Strauss on board and a Malygos that was buffed up by bananas. And what Gallon does is, in order for him to clear off the board, he has to use Obliterate, which he got off his Lich King from earlier on in the matchup. And he had to make the decision to obliterate the Malygos after clearing off the Alex Strauss with Spellstone and putting himself at 2, or Moonfiring the Malygos and putting himself at 3 by saving that 1 additional health. And by doing this, he limited the amount of outs that Fino had for lethal going into the next turn. Because Fino was out of cards, Gallon kind of realized that he wasn't going to be able to use that Moonfire for anything else. He figured that 0 mana gain 1 was the best use for that card in the situation where that game state was at. He realized that he had Ultimate Infestation. He just needed to wait one more turn before he could, start gaining more armor and start to solidify his hold on the game. And Fino top decks Moonfire the very next turn, which if he had not Moonfired himself before he obliterated, would have been lethal with Moonfire plus Hero Power to the face.
That's right.
And on top of that, the very next turn after that, Fino top decks Ultimate Infestation, which even if he hadn't had that Moonfire, he was out of range of lethal by 1 again because he had Ultimate Infestation and gained the 5 armor the previous turn. So just kind of the mentality of, I don't need to save this Moonfire. Gaining 1 health is the best case I'll be able to use this with, and it ended up working out perfectly for him. And
oh yeah,
many pogs in chat ensued after this play, Dan.
Yeah, fantastic recognition of the situation, and I think when the stars align for that kind of play to specifically work out in that order, you just feel like a genius. And, and when I watched that go down, I was so impressed by what Gallon does. But if you even just talk to him for a few minutes, he reminds me of so much of like the top players when you talk to like Hunter Ace or you talk to even some really elaborate combo players like Rage. They are always thinking about these corner case scenarios of how they could pan out. And half the time I'm always like, you're just way overthinking it, man. Like, don't think too much about this. Just go for the play and hope for it works out. But, I mean, in these scenarios, this is why they're able to squeeze out those extra percentage points and ultimately get those really crucial victories that leads them to have these absurd win rates. So, yes, it sometimes doesn't pan out to go for those Moonfires for 1 damage in case that they draw those extra damages from off the top of their deck. But in this scenario, it worked fantastically. And I think that kind of recognition, that ability to do something so counterintuitive is why it's well played.
Good summary, Dan. And before we kind of wrap up the well-played moment, I just want to talk about Gallon's inclusion of the King Mukla.
Well, first of all, I want to say that most of these Malygos Druids that are like cutting Flabindus Floop and playing Oaken Summons is surprisingly good. And King Mukla was good enough to make it beyond some of these weird janky combos like Oaken Summons. Purple, for example, brought 4 King Mukla decks. Unironically, and he said it was winning him a lot of his series.
There's still room. We're late in the expansion, Dan, but there's still room for experimentation. There's still room for maybe the same old decks, but some new cards within those decks. Even Tinkmaster Overspark made its way into some of his decks, including Gallon's decks, which was pretty cool to see. And I think the moment was well played, but also just his decks as a whole were very well played and well creatived.
Well prepped.
Well prepped. That's our
new segment.
New segment.
Yeah.
Well prepped. And now it's time, as always, for Now It's Time for, as always, meme
Shut
history.
Up. Just get on with it.
I don't know if you remember, but very early on in the days of TalkStone, it seems like so long ago now, because it actually was so long ago.
Months ago.
Months.
Right.
Many months. Many moons ago.
Yeah.
We developed this funny little thing called meme history.
Yes,
and
we'll use that word funny.
Yes.
I don't know if it means the same thing to me as it does to you, but we'll call it funny for now.
Okay. We've settled on funny. We said that in episode 14, we would explain the origins of meme history. Well, the funny thing is, Dan, we did make a note that we were going to explain the origins of meme history in episode 14, but we didn't make a note about what the origins were. So I forgot. So we're just going to make a new meme for today.
All right. Well, I brought an actual note to meme history this week in honor of the spoiler season that's currently going on. Which, by the way, I made a comparison recently on Twitter about basically going through an entire dry spell of no cards, no spoilers, really, like a few drips, and all of a sudden drinking from a water hose because it just seems like there's a windfall of spoiler cards right now, and it's really exciting. I think Rastakan's Rumble, I was told by Ixar, Dean Ayala, that it's his favorite set ever. Like, before Rastakan's Rumbles, designing-wise, he said his favorite set was Ungoro, and I think these are just really cool, flavorful sets that are super fun to explore. Yep. So I've been having a lot of fun. So in honor of spoiler season for Rastakan's Rumble, we want to dip into a historical meme from a year and a half ago with Knights of the Frozen Throne reveal season, which was off to a rocky start, which ended up becoming one of the most successful, if not the most successful expansion in Hearthstone history, by having day one of the spoiler season be solely Ticking Abomination. And this is really funny because it was a card revealed by Camlan, and everyone was first a little bit confused because it was a 4-mana 5/6 that said Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to all friendly minions. And people thought that this was not that great of a card at first because it relied a lot on specific combos and synergies. But what's funny is that because of communication problems that happen, and Blizzard usually has a bunch of partners or people that they send cards to reveal, nothing else got revealed.
Nope.
So the entire spoiler season was built up. Knights of the Frozen Throne, Death Knights, the Lich King and Arthas comes into Hearthstone, and how are they going to mix in one of the most epic IPs in all gaming history into a whimsical card game like Hearthstone that's based on fantasy and a bunch of jokes tied into the Warcraft universe. And then finally, the reveal kicks off with Ticking Abomination. And much to the surprise of fans, that people were expecting some really big kickoff spoilers, like some really nice thematic ones off Icecrown Citadel. But yet, when the Ticking Abomination came off, people were so outraged that was the only card that they got. They started memeing and basically doing Photoshop battles of Worgen Abomination and a bunch of other scenarios. And it was just a huge riot on the forums and on social media. It was very funny to watch unfold, even though I'm sure it gave Blizzard PR community quite the headache.
Yeah, it was just a funny time because, as you mentioned, probably one of the most hyped up. Once it was revealed, and we were in China for the Spring Championship.
That's right.
When it was revealed, and we got introduced to hero cards and Death Knights, and in hindsight. That expansion was one of the best expansions, especially when you consider what it introduced into the game with the hero cards. And so it's just kind of funny how all of it started.
Yeah, the peak
from Ticking Abomination. But Dan,
the peak of hype, man, and then all of a sudden just came crashing down for 1 second.
The punchline of all this is that Ticking Abomination made its way into a top 16 lineup at DreamHack Atlanta, with Phenom with a 4 Mechathune lineup. Included in that was Mechathune Priest, which of course runs Ticking Abomination to activate everything at the very end to get that Mechathune combo off.
That's right.
So, who's laughing now? Still everybody.
DJ, because we don't actually have any memory or recollection of how this segment came to be, why don't you tell us your rendition of how you remember it?
All right, so I guess we did meme history justice. We gave you guys a real meme history. As meme historians, we felt like you viewers at home deserved that from us. But since I don't remember the origins of meme history, I'll make one up.
Yeah, like all good history.
Yes. It was a foggy morning in Southern California. 9:02 a.m., Irvine, Blizzard headquarters. Frodan texts me. I'm in the cafeteria. I walk down. I meet with Frodan. I say, Frodan, you know what I need more of today? Frodan looks at me dramatically and says, what, TJ? Long pause ensued. I said, memes. And Dan just nodded his head. And that is the origin of meme history.
That was a very emotional story, TJ. I felt like I was part of that story.
Because you were.
Also, I feel like that's not too far from the truth.
No, we came in.
You were kind of pretending like you're going to make this up. I think that's actually what happened.
Yeah, on the real, it was basically just Dan and I were sitting in the room before TalkStone, talking with our producers, Nicole and Mike, and we were saying, hey, what can we do to spice this up? And the thing that I always do to spice things up is memes. And so we kind of said, what can we do? Well, let's dive into the origination of memes, and we just made meme history. So
I do want to say one small thing as we go a little bit over time for this segment, but I want to finish it off on this note. Is that I appreciate that the Hearthstone community has kind of embraced this very whimsical side of the esports industry. Like, a lot of esports are very serious and intense all the time. They're always talking about the best players in the world, and I mean, we do have the best players in the world competing in ours, but it's always about the highest stakes and the most intensity, the drama, the tension, etc. And Hearthstone, it's like we kind of embrace all the seriousness and the awkwardness and the really weird, strange scenarios that happen, and because it is replicated in the game too, right? Sometimes these really weird, awkward scenarios happen with cards or like things that you just did not expect whatsoever. So anything from the awkward ceremonies that happen, or the missed handshakes, or like the very weird, almost tripped on stage. We welcome that in the tavern, and I think it's just really fun to be part of it. Which is why some people who might be on the outskirts, who always wonder why we always do these meme history, we even just say memes half the time we're on broadcast, is because we want to have that part of the community. We welcome everything, both usual and unusual, inside of Hearthstone, especially the competitive side. And I wouldn't want anything changed from that, TJ.
It's one of the reasons why I love casting Hearthstone. It's one of the reasons why Dan and I will continue to bring you constant meme histories for the rest of TalkStone's existence. And Dan, we hope this edition of Meme History helped to make the Hearthstone community a more inclusive place for all.
All right, TJ, we're out of time for today. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, but come next time and in the coming months, we're gonna have a lot of exciting things to look forward to. Roscon's Rumble is going to be released in the coming weeks, and then we have the first tournaments after it, with I believe HCT Philly being announced very soon, and then we have playoffs in January, champs in February, and we're going to be having everything leading up to the Road to the World Championship. I'm really excited. Of course, have to get through this holidays. Happy holidays to everyone else. What are you doing for Thanksgiving, TJ?
I have a family in town. My wife's family from Canada is in town, and they're experiencing their first American Thanksgiving, which would be fun. I'll be at the helm for cooking, so good luck to me.
Yeah. Oliver is your sous chef?
He is, yes. He will be crying in the background as I struggle to cook a proper Thanksgiving meal. But it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Got a lot of activities planned in the upcoming couple weeks as well, which will keep me busy while I wait for Roscon's Rumble to drop and immerse myself in the world of Hearthstone once again.
Yes, you will stay awake because of the hype for the expansion, and then when you're just about to drift off to sleep, Oliver will be up crying.
Yes, he will. That's right.
Yeah. For myself, I will be in the Bay Area with my family as well. My sister recently also gave birth to the first grandchild of our family, so I am officially an uncle now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because I haven't met him, even though I'm an uncle, and it's just I'm the youngest of the family for so long that it feels weird now having something else to take all the attention away from me. So as you can tell, I'm addicted to the spotlight, TJ. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing while I celebrate and wait for the rest of the reveals to be coming this week and next week. And we hope that you guys will also enjoy that as well. Thanks for watching this episode of TalkStone. You can find TalkStone every other week at twitch.tv/playhearthstone, 6 p.m. Pacific on Wednesdays. And you can also find the audio version on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play. For all things competitive Hearthstone news and analysis, make sure to check out playhearthstone.com/esports. We'll see you in the tab.